You know, the death of a child is, I am convinced, the hardest of all griefs because it is so out of order. Children are supposed to mourn their parents, not the other way around. But if it is the hardest, it may also be the most sacred because it is the one the Blessed Virgin Mary knew. For our faith is ultimately more about life than death. Crucifixions, even the worst ones, have time limits. Resurrections are forever. She started getting really sick last June. A UTI affected her memory. She was in and out of the hospital, and then it was clear that her earthly journey was coming to a close. The family was told she maybe had 7 to 10 days left. Sharon saw her at 7 that final evening. She was resting comfortably, though her breathing was a little labored. And then she slipped away from us and into the arms of God. I envision in heaven her husband Joe reaching his arms out wide and saying, "Welcome home, honey." I envision her son Tim doing the same. "Welcome, Mom." But they would have to stand in line. I envision Jesus being there first, saying, "Well done, good and faithful servant Peggy. Enter into the joy of your master." Thanks be to God for the blessing of Peggy's life. Thanks be to God for the promise of her life, everlasting. And now it is my great joy and honor to welcome her granddaughters, Jacqueline and Addison.
Thanks for everyone for being here. I just wrote a few different kind of thoughts about Pepe. So first of all, I'm going to talk about why she was called Pepe. So I was the first grandchild. Addison and I were the bookends. I was a senior when Addison was in kindergarten. So there's a big amount of years between us. But so I had the, joy of naming her. And she had decided that she wanted to be named PJ for Peggy Jo. And so it was encouraged that I call her PJ. Somehow I turned PJ into Pepe. And the cool thing about that is she felt it sounded French. So she loved it. She loved it. And so to all of her grandchildren, she was Pepe. Some of the things that have already been discussed, I just kind of made a list of things that made me think about Pepe and talked to my family about things that they thought about as well. Travel, as was mentioned, I think I got the benefit of a lot of the travel because I was the first child, or the first grandchild. So I did go to DC with her. Tim loved country music. Oh, he would just rock to country music. And so she took us to Nashville and we got to see the Grand Ole Opry. And then my mom and I went to London and Paris with her, which was a dream come true type of trip. Mom always says that I walk really fast, and she would try to wait on Pepe, so we would be in a line, and I would be first, Mom would be second, and Pepe would be second. But we got where we were wanting to go. She was a super hard worker. My dad got that from her. She was opinionated. I got that from her. So did my dad. She was always up for anything. And so that meant that she came with my mom a lot to come see me wherever I was living. There was one trip to Dallas where I lived in Dallas, but they came, and I already had plans. Well, they were just going to come and do the plans that I had planned because they were coming to visit. So I took them to the Gay Pride Parade, and Pepe was completely up for it. She was up for anything. I loved Tim, and I loved her love for Tim. Tim was always so excited and exuberant for Christmas, and you couldn't keep him from opening presents. And so Pepe would have groups of presents hidden in the house so he could open things over and over and over again. And that was just kind of the mom she was, because that made Tim so happy. She never met a blue and white striped shirt she didn't love. She could drink her weight in coffee. She adored reading, especially nonfiction. We talked a lot about the Kennedys and the royal family, and she was very much into that. Oh, she was social. She didn't miss a Friday night dinner at my dad's barn, and she loved to gab. You could always see her sitting in a chair talking. As was mentioned, she could watch Fox News morning to night, but she certainly did not get up early. She always had colorful purses. They were very stylish. She never met a sweet she didn't like. We all got that from her. Finally, when I asked all of my family the thing that they remembered most, everyone said it was her laugh. She had a great laugh, and she loved to laugh.
Shoot, that already messed me up. The double ring at my parents' house. That's how we would know it was her at our door when she would come see us on her daily walk. I thought that I couldn't start today with having a little greeting from Pepe. When I started thinking about what I would say to honor my sweet Pepe's life, I realized how much we truly had in common. Immediately following that thought was that this was by no means a coincidence, but rather clear evidence of how much she impacted my life through what she loved and how she spent her time. As everybody has said, she had a love of travel and seeing the world. This passion for seeing beyond the everyday surroundings was undoubtedly passed on to me. Her love of adventure and curiosity of other cultures ran so deep that she started Peggy's Travel so she could help others see the world. Her house was filled with little trinkets and paintings from all over the world. She planted in me the desire to see beyond our town and venture out into the world. Her love of cinema. To know Pepe was to know she loved movies. Back when movies existed in the physical, she had a closet full of VHS tapes and eventually DVDs in alphabetical order with all of the greatest classics. When we would visit her at her house, it was typical for the visit to end with us in the closet talking through a few potential movies to bring home with us to watch. You better believe she had little stickers on the cases that read, "From the video library of Peggy Fitts," just to make sure they all eventually made their way back to her collection. And just to be safe, she would also jot down the names of who borrowed what movie. It was through Pepe that I learned to love and appreciate movies, especially the classics. Her care and her love for her son, Tim. She adored my Uncle Tim. In a time where people with disabilities were given very limited options, she made what I can imagine was one of the most difficult decisions of her life. They decided to have their son live at the Denton State School, which was the state-of-the-art setup at the time. From the time he moved in at a young age until he passed in his 50s, she would frequently visit him and have him come home with her for the weekend. She would wait on him hand and foot when he would come home. I vividly remember her on more than one occasion after he left, pulling up the couch cushions from where he would plant himself for those few days. She would have to clean out all of the gum wrappers and papers with his signature written over and over. She would clean up the crumbs with her little handheld vacuum. And I never remember her being bothered by it. She would just laugh at all he had tucked away. Some of my favorite memories with Pepe were going to see Tim at the Denton State School. We would go visit him together, whether it be for a special occasion like his birthday, or just to take him to lunch at Chili's, where he would maybe get like 5 refills of Dr. Pepper. It was in witnessing her love for Tim that I would forever have a heart for those with disabilities. Her love of her friends. She had a group of ladies she called her lunch bunch